Here is a broken Lamborghini Urus engine. And here was a broken Lamborghini Urus. I bought this wrecked Lamborghini Urus for my girlfriend. And since then, we've taken the engine out to repair all of the chassis damage. We've changed chassis legs and structural parts. Woo! Despite Lamborghini not giving us the repair procedures. But today we've got to fix this engine, put it back in the Urus, and hopefully Hannah can drive it for the first time.
It's not right.
But something tells me it's not going to be as easy as that.
Not good news.
So the front end crash seems to have took a lot of the engine with it, and a lot of the front is damaged. The pulleys are damaged on the front here. There's wiring which is damaged. There's hose which have got holes in it. I've just noticed that one. That's not good. But the main thing that I want to change whilst the engine out is this inlet manifold, because you cannot access this with the engine in, as we know from the RS6. So we're going to take off this and anything else damaged on the engine, like this throttle body here. Let's get this inlet manifold off, and if it's anything like the RS6, it's going to be a bit of a job to do it, but let's get it off.
Can I take the drive shafts off?
The inlet manifolds are the last thing the air passes through before it goes into the engine. And if there's any holes in them, then it's going to cause a huge boost leak. So all the work that the turbos are doing will be pointless. Now, in true Audi fashion, we're going to have to remove another part just to access the bolts for the inlet manifold, which will be this engine mount bracket, which my dad's removing now. And once that's off, I can access all the bolts now to take the inlet manifold off the engine, ready for it to be replaced. Yes. No flaps. So in the RS6, there used to be flaps in here, which open and close for like, I think it's for cold start and fuel efficiency and that. And they were an absolute nightmare, but there's literally no flaps in there. But, do you know what's horrible? On the screen, yeah, on the screen now, I'll put an inlet manifold of a Lamborghini Gallardo up. And this is an inlet manifold of a Lamborghini Urus. What happened? But I guess the plus side of things is that this inlet manifold was only £172. And I imagine a metal one would have been more expensive, but a metal one probably wouldn't have broken an accident. Now I can refit the new inlet manifold. From the inlet manifold, we then have this throttle body. I'm gonna say that's good, you know. These were expensive. Yeah, that one might be getting thrown. A new throttle body was needed. £193 for one of these, but we're not taking any risk because it's basically an engine out job just to replace them. And there was also damage to the other side, another £193. Next up, the aircon compressor. This was also damaged in the accident. Off we come. It's quite hard to see on camera, but the actual pulley is bent, and you can't replace the pulley separately. So I've had to buy a whole new aircon compressor. This was £746. AC compressor is on. To power the AC compressor, it's powered by the crank, which is spinning around here, but it won't spin by Bluetooth. You need a belt. But for the belt, it needs a tensioner to keep it tight. The tensioner looks like a shark is at it, and the roller pulley there has also looked like a shark's at it. So we need to replace them. Luckily, we've got them as well. It's getting more and more expensive. Here we go. A new tensioner was £67. And to get this one off, I've got to add tension to the tensioner, slide in a punch to hold it in place, and then I can access the bolt underneath. After that, I should be able to pull it away from the car. This one's a look at that. Oh. It's a preloaded, like, is you remove the pin, then you... Now I can fit the new tensioner to the engine. There's just 2 bolts holding this in place. And next thing to replace is this roller pulley, which just guides the belt round. £39 for this pulley. Then it's time for the belt. £22. Yeah. And once I've pulled the pin out of the tensioner, it was ready to go on the front. But that wasn't all. Next step, there is more damage here. This is the damage we can see. We don't know if there's any more hidden damage, but there's all damage to all these pipes. If we have any air leaks in the boost pipes, it's going to be causing power loss. So we need to make sure we change all of these as well. Let's get them out. This engine is really complicated. Once again, more damage to plastic stuff. And there's more parts that we've got to replace, especially induction pipes. Oh, That's a good job we have changed that. Look at all that. What you can see here is around £270 worth of plastic parts and silicone hoses. Again, I did not expect this much damage when I bought the car, but you win some and you lose some. Solid work, look at that. Next up, we've got this damaged coolant pipe here. Although it is supposed to be flat for clearance, the part where the hose clips onto it isn't supposed to be flat. So my dad's using heat now to try and soften the metal and get it back to its original shape.
It's not round, but it's better than it was.
Dad's tried to get it out, but we're not going to risk it. We don't want it to leak once we put it on the car. So I think we're going to take this off, and instead of buying it from Lamborghini, which is... How much do you think that hose is? £516.
What?
£516 that hose is.
Why?
So 100% we are definitely not buying that hose. But I know just the place to take this to, to fix it. But we won't tell him it was £516 because he's going to charge us like £416 to fix it. We'll take it off the engine for now because it is late.
Oh, good catch.
Absolute Spider-Man reactions. It's 8:45 now, so tomorrow we'll take this to Bob. But for now, we're going to do something Hannah doesn't know about, because Hannah's probably here tomorrow and she'll see her engine and we need to make out that it's not modified. But we've got a solution for back here. This is the exhaust of the Urus. And some would say one of the most important parts of a Lamborghini. It's the part that Lamborghini are known for, the sound. And the newer the cars get, the tamer the sound gets. We've got a solution, and it's from Valvetronic. Right, it is a full turbo back kit, and look at this. Look at the cat inside. It's just downsized slightly. So I don't know if they are going to need a tune with these, or just because there's so much more room for activities in there, it's just going to be louder. We don't actually know. But again, Hannah wants to keep it stock, so we'll just tell her it's stock. She's never driven one before, so she wouldn't know. Time to remove the old catalytic converters and downpipes, which is so much easier now that we have the engine out. Look at that, look at all the restriction. And now we've got high flow sports caps. So much more room.
If you're enjoying this video, please subscribe. But if you're not, don't bother.
Time to fit on the new Valvetronic downpipes, which actually attach to the original part of the Urus exhaust, or the front part anyways. There's still more where that came from. Part of the exhaust is on, and the engine is almost ready to go in. Remember, the engine's got to sit on engine mounts, and that was our issue in the last video. We had 2 cracked engine mounts here. One there, and one in there as well. Now, we've got 2 off a Bentley Bentayga. We only used these because the Urus ones were special order, and also the Lamborghini ones were £156 each, as opposed to our £70 each, which are almost exactly the same. You can see this one, that one's identical. It is the same. But on this side, for some reason, look, Urus decided to flip it. Well, Lamborghini decided to flip it. So we're hoping we can split the backside of this one and take the backside of that one and make a hybrid one and make it work. So we're hoping we can split these out. So that's what we're going to try now. And then we can fit it all to the car and hopefully slide the engine in. So can we split these engine mounts apart? We sure can. Yes! This one onto that one now. These engine mounts are full of oil, which helps softens the vibrations inside the cabin caused by the engine. And they're also electronically controlled, so the ECU can tell it whether to stiffen the engine mount or to soften it, depending on which driving mode you're in. And we're hoping all of this is still going to work after we've used half of a Urus engine mount onto half of a Bentayga engine mount. But I can't see why it wouldn't. It looks pretty much identical. just this time without the crap. We've got to fit these first because this bolt here you can't get to with the engine in.
See ya.
In true Audi fashion again, they put bolts in places which are really difficult to get to, but this time not so much because the engine is out. I've done one side and my dad's done the other.
Both engine mounts in.
What we're going to do, because we're planning on hopefully trying to drive this by the end, and we can't drive it on these tyres because look, perish. We think it's a good time to get these wheels off and send them to Wheelmania, so... We need to get this wheel off and send it to Wheelmania so they can put 2 fresh tyres on it and we might be able to drive it.
Oh my god! That's gonna break the kit.
Oh, it was like a Porsche centre bolt, that was.
Danny's gonna take it. Go, Danny! Now it's time for us to put the engine back in once and for all.
First attempt. Getting the engine in.
We're putting this in a different way to how we took it out. This time we're trying to push the engine in with the subframe already in place and then lower the engine onto the engine mounts and put the bolt through. Which proved to be a little harder than first thought, but it did help us find a problem that we didn't know exists. We missed some. There's a huge hole in this inlet
Let me
manifold.
see. That hole's massive.
Yeah.
Have we got another one of them?
No.
What?
Because we never had that. We never ordered one of them because we thought that one was fine. Okay, so if we've got to pull it out a bit, but now we're stuck, we're gonna have to special order one.
Not good news.
How have we missed that? The only way you realised that that was broken is when you went to push that, then it made a noise.
Yeah, then I seen
that
that it
and
was
you went, "What
moving. I was
happened?"
like, well, that's not shouldn't move like that. So it's a good job we found now though, because otherwise, if we put it in, then we was like, why is it not running right? We would have never would have seen that in the car. I would have had to take it all the way out.
We were this close to putting it in.
Yeah. So now I've got to remove the throttle body so I can see more of the damage. Oh, the little bit of plastic's in there.
It's the whole piece.
It's not looking good. So instead of wasting time, I've got to start removing this inlet manifold as well. Look at that. I didn't want to risk repairing this, especially with the amount of pressure that goes through this inlet. So instead, we've got to find a new one. But in the meantime, we went to the machine shop. It needs to be round, so a hose can go on it. So I could drop off this coolant hose, which is supposed to be round. And we're hoping Bob can work his magic on it. Oh! Wow. That should work. Thanks, Bob. We're winning. Euro spares saved the day. They took one of these off the Urus that they were breaking and gave it to my dad. What a winner that is. So now we've got an inlet manifold. Now we've got a circular coolant pipe as well, thanks to Bob. We can install all of this and hope this is the last bit that's going to cause us issues. I really highly doubt that. So let's get rid of this one with a broken hole in it and fit the good one, and then we can continue the job we actually started doing. We're just putting the engine in. We just got to be careful not to damage this on the way in. Things are looking upwards now. Coolant hose fix, and we have a brand new second-hand inlet manifold. I've already bolted the inlet manifold to the engine. Now we can bolt back on the throttle body, and we're ready for the engine this time to go back into place. We've got to try and push the engine into the engine bay and then line it up with the engine mounts. Then we can slide the bolt through the engine mount and onto the engine. After that, we can tighten the subframe up. Yes! We're never doing it that way again. Ever. Now that's done, we can lift the car in the air and the engine will stay in it, and we can go underneath and put the bolts in which hold the gearbox to the chassis of the car, and tighten up the remaining bolts underneath.
Drive shaft going on.
I know the Americans like to call this a drive shaft, but we like to call it a prop shaft. This slides onto the back of the gearbox and goes all the way down the car and connects to the differential. And there's a few bolts in the middle which hold it up. Then I'm on the front of the engine connecting the new plastic boost pipes to each side of the throttle bodies. And a few coolant hoses as well. I think next up I'm going to try and get the drive shafts in. To get the drive shafts in, I had to loosen off these top two arms so I could pull the suspension back, which then gave me enough room to slide the drive shaft into the gearbox and into the wheel hub as well. Once I tighten the big nut on the wheel hub, I can then slide in the top two arms back into place and put the bolts in and sort out all the electrical connections and brake lines on the suspension. Then I'm moving back onto the top of the engine and putting back in all the clips and trims and coolant hoses on top, including the engine's ECU. Everything is roughly in, but now we're at the point where, because the whole front end was literally ripped off the car, we have no idea how it went together. So all we're doing is we've got your Euro spares diagram, which we've got in here, and we've ordered literally more than we need so that if we don't use anything, we're going to send it back. And we're just looking at part numbers, for example, 147BB and then 1447BC. We look at the part number, Hannah tries to find it, and then we put it on, and then we go from there and keep going forward. So next up is the hose, that's gone on, and then after that, we need solenoid valve. A 1671D, that's the next thing to find. This went on for hours. Finding the right part, checking to make sure it was right, handing it over to my dad, and then my dad was fitting it to the car. Because all these parts were ripped off in the accident and didn't come with the car, we have no idea where all of it went. And we're only going off diagrams, which aren't the best. We were all looking for nuts and bolts to make sure we used the proper OEM ones, and then looking back on the diagram to make sure we were putting them in the right place.
That goes in the top.
Yeah? Looks right, doesn't it? And then that one, do you reckon that one's the one that goes... It's got to go in like that somehow. There was water pumps, solenoids, and even electrical connections which were ripped off. But we think we had a solution for the electric side. This was completely unnecessary, but it's really helped with time. So what we've done here is, because there's loads of plugs missing all over the everywhere, the whole engine loom has got plugs missing all over the place. It's really hard to find out what goes where without a wiring diagram, because we don't have one and Lamborghini won't give us one. We managed to get a full wiring loom from Euro Spares, very cheap. And we're just going to, now we know exactly where everything goes and we can take all the connectors off them. And the good thing as well, we can use this on other cars as well. All the Audis and Volkswagens use the same plug. So at least now we can find out.
I feel like you're trying to justify this purchase. That looks terrifying.
Yeah, but this is, all this is inside your car.
All of that for that sensor.
Either that, or we get a whole of a Urus and look at all the plugs on it.
You have at this
It
point.
seems extreme, but it is the most logical way we thought of working out where all these connectors went, and the least time consuming. Now my dad can deepen the connectors off the wiring loom that we bought and pin them onto the original wiring loom. We now know exactly where they go and which colour wire goes into which pin. We've just got to do this 100 times over. There's a lot of broken electrical connectors on this car. New connecting bar. Yeah.
I can't wait to see Danny use a ratchet.
Yeah. Am I doing good? Thanks, Hannah. Right.
What is you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing now? Take it out.
What was going on just then? Okay, I don't know where we're at in the video at this point. We've spent hours on this. We've built up a full radiator pack, which on a normal car is fairly simple. And this car really, it gets complex. You're gonna have to bear with me through this section and put your full thinking caps on because it's confusing. On a radiator pack, we have got aircon condenser. So this cools the gas in the aircon. That's fine, it's a completely separate unit. It has a feed pipe, and it also has a return pipe. They will go to that. And on the car, we have a feed pipe and a return pipe. Easy, light work, no problem at all. Then we have an intercooler on the left-hand side of the car here, and an intercooler on the right-hand side of the car. This is quite common. Intercoolers are for each turbo. So we've got 2 turbos on the car. On the top here, one is for the left-hand side and one is for the right-hand side. It gets sucked in through the top of the turbo, round the turbo, blown out the bottom here, and then this pipe would go down here, connect down to this intercooler, round the bottom of it, and come out the bottom there, which is this one. It gets sucked through there and then into our inlet manifold with high pressure in it. Light work, and it does exactly the same on the other side. It's a symmetrical image. Our issue is the cooling system on this car. It must really struggle with cooling, because not only do you have one big radiator here for the engine, which would usually consist of one water pump in the engine here, which would blow water, hot water, through the top of the rad. It would then flow down and come out through the bottom of the rad and go back into the engine. Simple, light work. You'd have a thermostat in there. Job's done. They've even put an electric thermostat in, but we won't even get onto that because that's not our issue. That wasn't enough. They decided they wanted to put one more radiator here and then another radiator here, because the big radiator on the front of the car wasn't enough. Not only that, they also decided to put an extra water pump for these radiators, extra water pump because one wasn't enough, and then also on this side they decided to put another water pump for these radiators because 2 wasn't enough. And it gets worse, because down here is a solenoid, and this solenoid is used for the gearbox cooling, which has a full separate cooling system. When the gearbox oil is cold, the solenoid shuts the flow of coolant off going through the cooler at the front, and then when the gear oil gets to temperature, it opens up and lets the coolant go through the radiator at the front, which in turn allows the coolant to cool down and cool the gearbox oil down. And not only that, we found out there's also optional extras on this car to have an auxiliary heating pump. On this Urus, you can have a pump on the side here, on some models, which I think even when you turn your ignition on, it'll be heating up the coolant that goes into the cabin of the car, so you can have a hot car without having the engine on. The issue we're having, we don't know whether this car had an auxiliary heater. We don't think it did, we just think it just had the plug. And now we've got hoses which lead all over the place, and we can't quite figure out what hoses we've got, what hoses we haven't got. We've got loads of hoses from Euro, which we believe are from cars which some have the auxiliary radiator, some don't. And then let me just bring you on to the grand finale. This one. This one. Goes to nowhere, apparently. So we were missing some hoses, but instead we just used what we had in the workshop just to connect the pipes up to the correct places, and then wait for the proper ones to arrive. But at least now we can bring the rad pack to the car and connect up all the hoses from the rad pack to the car, including all the intercooler ones and the extra water pumps. It does seem the newer these cars get, the more complex and harder to work on they get. Once the hoses are connected at the top, I'm then going to connect up the air conditioning lines, and then we're almost there. Where my Ferrari at, because I don't like Lamborghini anymore. There's the last few bolts which hold the rad pack to the chassis of the car, and that should be job done. I think it is on, plumbed in, and plugged in to an extent. There's still plugs which are ripped out the bottom, but none of these are required for it to start and move. We should be able to put oil in it, and we should be able to put coolant in it without it all pouring all over the floor. But there is one last thing we've got to fit to it before we worry about that, and that's the exhaust that Hannah doesn't know about, because at the minute Hannah's away and she's going to come back to start it, and we need to make sure that exhaust is on before she comes so she doesn't notice it, because it's going to be on the floor. Let's get that on first. Here it is, a full Valvetronic titanium exhaust system for the Urus. Luckily this exhaust is valve, so we can have the choice of whether it's loud or a little bit less loud. We've just got to fit it. It slides into the original front pipes and then works its way from the middle backwards, using all the original mounting points. So, I'm assuming that we can just hang these out the way and we won't get a fault. And we'll plug these ones in to here. It has an additional loom for the new valves. And then the original loom just gets tucked away. Well, we think. Yes, I'm on. That goes into there. Then what we're going to do is route this cable up into the boot. And once I've got that loom up into the boot, I've got to do another one for the other valve on the other side. Connect it to the valve and then slot it up into the same place. And hopefully, we can find that inside the car. Almost the final piece of the puzzle, the exhaust tip, which say Valvetronic.
But if Hannah reads it, it says Lamborghini.
Lamborghini. The exhaust tips are wild. And I'm sure most people would know that these are aftermarket. But if Hannah doesn't walk around the back of the car, I think we might just get away with it for the meantime. And now the exhaust is on, it looks unreal. But the job's not finished yet. We've got to connect up those exhaust valves. So I open up the boot and I need to look for the loom that I've pushed up into the boot from underneath. And it seems quite a tricky place to find. So I had to strip apart a lot of the interior in the boot section to get it. Yeah! Now the wires are found, I can pull them out and put back together all the interior trim that I've just taken apart. Almost there. Here we go. This is our little control box. It's got an aerial on it. So they go in there. So that goes in there. And then this connects up to the 12-volt cigarette lighter, which is hidden away in the boot, which is going to be perfect for this valve system. Little box in there. Yeah, chilling. She won't know. And then this, see that? That'll open and close our valves once we've got the ignition on. They're working.
Yeah.
It's dinging when you do that.
Exhaust is on, valves are working. Let's hear this for the first time and drive it for the first time. But there's a few more little things to do. Let's get to it. Here goes the steel guard to protect everything. This guard goes on to protect the plastic sump for the gearbox. Now you wouldn't think a car like this with a plastic gearbox sump would be worth the money I paid for it, which was £120,000, which sounds expensive. And the bad news about it is that it's still a category S, and I can see that on here. It was damaged in March last year as a category S car, which means structural damage. But that will stay with it for life, because you can see that on Car Vertical. But there are some good points about it. I can see that it's had no mileage fraud, there's no outstanding finance on it, and it's also never been stolen or exported, which is good news. But for me, this car's more about Hannah and less about profit. Now, also to get it started on this amazing design car, there's no dipstick. So we don't know how much oil's in there. The only way to find out is to run the car up to temperature and then check it on the dashboard, which we might not be able to do if we've routed the coolant hoses wrong. Now, I think you would be quite upset if you bought this car and didn't know it was a category S. As you would any car. That is the good thing about Car Vertical, is if you're going to buy a car or you've got a car, then check it out using Car Vertical, and then you can find whether it's been in an accident, been stolen, had any mileage fraud. And you can do that by clicking the link in the description box below and using the discount code here. You can even see if it wasn't an accident and it was auctioned off at a car crash auction website. You'll even see the photos of the car when it was auctioned off, so you can see exactly where it was damaged.
Amazing.
Sump plug back in. Oh, Valvoline. Fill it. 5W50, boy. That's the wrong grade oil.
Everybody's been telling you how to use a funnel.
Oh, Don't believe in it. Funnels is like riding a bike with stabilisers.
Come on then. Let's see you do a wheelie.
Oh no.
Keep going.
Keep going. Ah! Keep going. Higher then. Come on. Oh my god.
Go on.
No. It's a family waterfall.
Keep going.
This is a weird thing because this is part of the engine cover as well. That's just how it is at the minute. We weren't going to put water in it, but we are now because we've made some makeshift hoses for everywhere.
Including this.
Including that, yeah. But that's Lamborghini.
Oh
no, Salt Bay.
Where?
Dripping out of this one.
Who ain't put that one on?
That one's not coming out.
This was your side.
No, I didn't do that.
No, this was your side.
It looks like coolant was leaking from this top hose which connects to the expansion tank. Oh! It's cracked. Yeah, it's cracked.
Yeah, I can see it's right on the joint.
Oh my god. Another problem. So my dad's going to take this tank off whilst I ordered another one. £35. Audi Q7 3-litre TDI. But in the meantime, I think my dad's found a temporary solution. Tiger seal. He's going to tiger seal over the crack and just hope that it holds out and allows us to run this car just up to temperature. With all that blobbed into place, we put the expansion tank back in along with the coolant. Okay, there's water in it, but it is leaking. We're going to start it now to make sure it does actually start and run, because last time it ran, it was misfiring and all sorts, wasn't it? But we just put that down to that it was not together right. So if this runs, this needs to run properly now and smooth there, then at least one thing's gone right. Else this Ferrari hat is staying on my head. 5 days we've been on this car now, and oh my god, I just hope it actually runs right. There's a waterfall.
I don't think the tiger seal works.
There's a waterfall. We need so many more parts. We are well and truly in the red with this car. The amount of money we spent, time we spent on it. But at the end, if we can get a good car, it's worth it. There's no point quitting because you won't have a car at the end, is there? Quitters never win. Now, after all that work, let's hope this thing starts. Please work. Yeah? Hey, sounds alright.
That's so loud.
Look, if she starts it up like that, she won't know.
That's well quiet.
That sounds That sounds sick.
Oh. That sounds so good.
She'll be buzzing with that. Good news, Ferrari's in the bin. And the next morning, the wheels come back from Wheel Mania with fresh tyres on. Look at them. Fresh football. So we can put them on the car in hopes to drive it for the first time. Now it's time for Hannah to see it. There it is!
Yay! Looks great! I didn't feel it.
Okay, start it up. Go. Quiet! That's standard. That's standard.
It's got no exhaust.
Press that. There you go. Quiet. That's alright, isn't it?
Is that noise just the engine?
Yeah, that's fine. Give it a rev. It's got a soft limiter. And then that's alright, isn't it? Ready to drive it?
Yeah.
The Urus is driving out for the first time since the accident. It might not look like a Urus yet, but at least it's driving. Yeah! We're out!
Oh my god! That sounds nuts!
Oh, it's well stiff. I think it's like on its bum. I don't think there's any air in the suspension. We're just on the bump stops. I think the front suspension's not working.
It feels like PS3.
It's not right.
Oh,
You've got no air in
we've got no air in the suspension. There's definitely something wrong with the suspension. Look how high the front is. I think it's to do with that sensor there, which isn't connected. But we drove it for the first time. It's driving. Oh.
It's got many issues.
It's got a few more issues we need to fix, but at least it's driving. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.
Who's done that?
It's a Blanco.
Is that OEM? Or is that OEM Plus?
That's
like a drug that I just can't deny.